This week, I have been, as I prepared for today, I've been singing Dr. King's favorite hymn in my head and out loud and in the shower and wherever I was in the car this week. Some of you know it. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, Lord, I am worn. Lead me on through the night, lead me on into the light. I sing Precious Love. Precious love, take my hand, lead me on. I set myself a task this week to weave 3 threads together, and this song, this lament, this prayer was helpful to me as I did it. Today is World Religions Day, founded in 1950 by the Baha'i faith to promote harmony and understanding and mutual respect among religions. Tomorrow we celebrate Martin Luther King Day, which celebrates what would have been Dr. King's 97th birthday on January 15th. Yes, isn't it something to think of him as an old man? We only know him and see him as a young, vibrant man. And our monthly theme is practicing resistance. So how to weave together world religion and the message of Dr. King and practicing religion? Well, in fact, they just all wanted to go together. That was not hard to do. Speaking of perspectives and thinking of different world religions, sometimes we hear this old metaphor that each religion is a pathway up the same mountain, a different pathway up the mountain. Have you heard this? I'm trying to move away from this metaphor a little bit myself. If you'll forgive me for mixing metaphors, that one flattens the difference between different religions and theologies. Really, they're not all going to the same point. If you believe your point is the only point, they're not all going to the same point. But a tapestry or a quilt, I think, is a really excellent metaphor for different religions. Each of these pieces is individual, and they come together in this unified, harmonious whole. They are stitched together, they're interrelated. There are images that we recognize. The birds, I had the birds on my stole made to match the birds up here. You gave me this stole and let me design it. Thank you very much. Some of you recognize your own fabrics from in here, your shirt or your skirt or your pants. The children that are on the quilts were taken, the model, some of the children of this congregation, including Nancy Tepper's children and others, were models for and photographs for these children that are on here. Different religions have a different emphasis, and I think the quilt is a good way to think of that as a harmonious whole. There's strength in diversity. A tapestry becomes stronger and more complex through the various threads and textures. Our perspective shifts. Some of you came up close, and if you get close to it, you see different things than you do if you're in the back of the room. Interconnected, unity without homogeneity. That's how we can think about world religions, different religions, and how we can respect them and understand them a little bit. Dr. King was a Southern Baptist minister deeply connected to the Judeo and Christian ethic. I want you to hear me. I'm not saying Judeo-Christian as if it is one thing that ends in Christianity, but Judeo and Christian ethic. That "and" is an important distinction there. In Judaism and in the Hebrew faith, the prophets were all about resistance to oppression. Their message was oppression exists. We have a covenant with God. God will protect us, and our work is to act in opposition to oppression. The great prophet Micah, who was talking about religion shouldn't be all about clanging cymbals and wearing your big old symbols on your dress when you're on the news. It wasn't all about clanging cymbals and outward shows and all of that about religion. Micah said, "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice?" It is an action to do justice, to love mercy, hello, empathy, compassion, and to walk humbly with your God. What is required of us as human beings but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly on this earth? It couldn't be clearer, this message of resistance. And Dr. King was well versed in the stories of the prophets. Amos, "May justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream," he said frequently. And of course, the message of Jesus was all about resistance to empire. It was preaching the word of love for your neighbor. Preaching the message of love for your neighbor, those who do not look like us, to welcome the immigrant. Those words are there. That's the message that Dr. King was very familiar with, and that he led out of his faith with. We know that he learned important concepts of nonviolent resistance from Mahatma Gandhi, from the nonviolent movement of Gandhi. And there are two words that I learned I'd like to teach you, and these concepts that were important to King as he led his movement, the movement for civil rights. One is ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-harming. It's an ancient Indian principle of nonviolence, and it means that in Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism, that all living beings have a spark of the divine. Each and every one of us and all living beings, including our visitors on the hill, have a spark of the divine. And to hurt another being is to hurt ourselves. That violence have karmic consequences. So we should not cause injury to another person through our thoughts or words or deeds. I'm okay with the deeds part, but the thoughts and words, that's a little hard. I find that a little challenging. That's why it's a practice. That's why, if spiritual practice were easy, then we'd all do it all the time. We return to the practice. The other thought is, I have to look at it, satyagraha, or truth force. I think we need a new, in the Department of Peace, the truth force. I could have that. Yeah. Somebody start designing those uniforms. I want to see the uniform of the truth force. Maybe it'd just be T-shirts. I think that'd be good, right? The truth force is a concept that was developed by Gandhi to explain the power of truth without violence to change political or other circumstances. It was a key concept of India's independence movement through civil disobedience, non-cooperation, and fasting. And and holding firmly to the truth of global movements for justice by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. Appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. Now, the cynical part of me wants to say, well, that assumes that they have a conscience. See, thought, word, and deed. I gotta work on that. But we who believe in a truth force, who believe in nonviolent resistance, are appealing to all that we can through the consciousness of justice. Now, Dr. King went to India in 1959, but before he did, Howard Thurman, who was really the theologian of the civil rights movement, he went to India in 1935 to study with Gandhi, and then Bayard Rustin, who was one of the architects of the March on Washington and really brought nonviolence into the movement, went in 1948. These ideas of nonviolence had been growing within I'll call it the theology of the civil rights movement well before King got there. So he was stepping into something that was already grounded. And I think this is so important. Ideas begin somewhere and they move from place to place. This fabric didn't just show up here one day. It was woven somewhere. It was a part of someone's skirt or shirt. It went through some iterations. Maybe it was passed down. Maybe it was passed around. And it wound up here. And this won't be the end of it. These will do something else someday. Right? So ideas move through time. I want to say a word about Dr. King and Islam. Of course, the closest connection that we might reach for is the dynamic between Dr. King and Malcolm X, as he was one of the leaders of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is one particular way of thinking about the words of Muhammad, and may peace be upon him. And they didn't always agree. King and Malcolm X very much disagreed in the ways to move the civil rights movement forward. But King's core principles of justice, equity, unity, and judging people by their character, not by color, resonate with Islamic teaching. They disagreed about the best way to move the plight of African Americans forward. King was for integration and Malcolm X was for segregation. But their history with each other is more complex. And after Malcolm X was assassinated, King sent a telegram to his widow, Betty Shabazz. And he said, while we did not always see eye to eye on methods to solve the race problem, I always had a deep affection for Malcolm and felt that he had a great ability to put his finger on the existence and root of the problem. He was an elegant spokesman for his point of view, and no one can honestly doubt that Malcolm had a great concern for the problems we face as a race. That's respect. That is a harmonious way of thinking of who they were together. And Dr. King knew something about Unitarian Universalism. When he was in Boston working on a graduate degree, he attended Unitarian and then Unitarian Universalist churches. He was familiar with our idea that each of us has a piece of the truth, that God loves us so much, in the parlance of the day, that none of us would be damned to hell. That's the universalism in the Unitarian Universalism. And that together we source out the truth. We read the signs of the times and understand what is coming. King was a prophet, and that is the role of the prophet. Not to see into the future in some kind of magic way, but to read the signs of the times and tell us how we should go. And so here we are. How do we move forward? We get the grief and the grace on the same day. We get the bad news and we get the sunrise on the same day. It's felt that way this week a lot. This coming week in Minneapolis, an organization that I was a part of when I lived there, March, Multi-Faith, Anti-Racism, Change, and Healing, March, a group of interfaith ministers and lay people that started, it's got its roots in the fight for marriage equality in Minnesota, and then it came together to do racial justice work, has called clergy from around the country to come to Minneapolis in an echo of King's call to clergy to come to Selma. Yeah. On the day that King called clergy to come to Selma, the next day the Unitarian Universalist Association board was meeting in Boston, and they convened their meeting, and then they paused it. What do you say, suspended the meeting, all went to Selma and regathered as a board. It was that important. So clergy from all over the country are coming to Minneapolis this coming week on Thursday and Friday to learn, to witness, to find their prophetic voice, to hear each other, to comfort each other, and to come back to the world, to the rest of the country, and tell us how we move forward, to solidify those words of theology as we move forward. There is only one place in the world that I would rather be than in Minneapolis this coming week. It's really hard not to be there. And I'll be with family, because that's the thing for me to do. Because we each take a shift for the revolution. Because what is true is that we go on and live our lives in the midst of this apocalypse. We must go on and live our lives. We take care of our children, we take care of our parents, we take care of our neighbors. We do the work that is ours to do this week, right now. And when the time shifts again, we take our shift for the revolution. So we don't have to be all things to all people all the time. We can't. Not possible. And we can, I think of justice so much more as a relay than certainly a sprint or even a marathon, because I have to hand off that baton sometimes. And it's good for me to hand off that baton. Other people are doing the work. I'll say that we are doing the work, that in this town people are doing the work. Last night at the Ames Warming Center, there were 6 and 8. And the night before, there were 6. And tonight, the warming place will be open. Yes, any night that it's under 10 degrees, is that right? The warming place here in Ames will be open for people. And they're looking for volunteers. That information is in my newsletter this week. The Social Justice Circle is going to be meeting, and we're talking about Amos. And the work of Amos is to build community. Find out what you're interested in and who else wants to work on it. How do we keep building this beloved community? Each one of us with a different perspective. Each one of us woven and continuing to be woven in strong tapestry. When is it my turn for the shift, for the revolution? Because we are all in it, people. We are all in it. And we have to let it all in. Let's sing Precious Love. Precious love, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, Lord, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on into the light. Precious love, take my hand, lead me on. May we notice how good the soup is. May we scream when we need to scream. May we let it all in. Blessed be, and may it be so.